I think we're live. Weirdest thing, normally I broadcast to Facebook. Facebook's not working. I can't broadcast to Facebook today, so we're just stuck with YouTube. YouTube's probably the biggest platform anyway. Doesn't make any difference. Let me just check and make sure we are live. Yeah. Okay, we're live. So we're going to talk about the cinematic mode problem in Final Cut Pro, whether it's iOS, whether it's Final Cut Pro, whether it's something else, whether it's the iPhone 14. We're also going to discuss the iPhone 14 external mic problem that I've been testing myself. So we'll wait for a few more minutes for a few more people to get in here. sure is quiet here, Southern Barbecue says. Not for too long. I think we're going to be stirring up the pot a bit. There's a couple of issues. I'm going to go into details, but we're going to get Final Cut Pro and the iPhone 14 with iOS 16 working with Cinematic Mode in October. In October, we're going to get that. But it's perhaps not what you're thinking. It's something else is going on. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes. How's everybody doing? Who has got their brand new, beautiful iPhone 14, which I've got right here? I've got the 14 Pro Max, 1 terabyte SSD. Yes, it has this lousy, outdated 10-year-old Lightning port on the bottom here. We're waiting for USB-C, perhaps in the 15. I know people that don't update every year say that they're waiting for the 15. Well, I do update every year, so I'll use the 14 and I'll get the 15. Hey, who knows what this is? Who knows what this is? Double R. If you know what it is, say something in the comments. This is my coffee cup for today. One of my favorite TV shows. All right, so I don't think we're on Facebook today. Facebook, I posted it on Twitter. I'm not sure. Good to see you, Richard. Good to see you too, Jeff. Glad that you could make it today. So this is a combo. This is mostly the reason I decided to do this. I've got the information. Double Rolls Royce. Nice try. Rolls Royce. That's a good guess. But look what this side says. A damn good cup of coffee. See what else, if anybody else can come up with what that. It's not Rolls Royce. I don't think maybe I've been in a Rolls Royce once for a prom or something. We might have rented a Rolls Royce limousine, but that's not what that is. So we're going to talk about Final Cut Pro, Cinematic Mode. Do you know what Cinematic Mode is? You know what? There's all kind of craziness going on here today. I just checked out the audio on the YouTube channel. It seems to be out of sync. I can't do anything about it right now. I'm recording this. Maybe I'll take that one down and put it back up again. But there's a specific reason why this cinematic mode will be fixed in October. However, it is not perhaps the fix you're looking for. It is a fix with Final Cut Pro and Cinematic. Final Cut Pro and Cinematic. But let's go over some of the details, and then I'll tell you why. Jeff Benjamin has it. Twin Peaks, absolutely. Look at my background. Does it look like Ben Horne's office, perhaps, a little bit? Yeah, I'm a big Twin Peaks fan. I like David Lynch's stuff in Twin Peaks. So, yeah, it's the Double R Diner. The Double R Diner, that's what that stands for. This is a Twin Peaks mug. Double R Diner. Eric, our friend Eric says, Florida here still have power for now. Did you get hit? Are you on the coast and got a lot of water? They have that hurricane down there. In Florida, I checked on my relatives. They're all okay. They're in different places in Florida. None of them are on the coast, although my sister is in an area that got flooded somewhat. So let's look at some of the things that have been happening this week as far as the cinematic. I put out a video. Let's check out the actual problem. Let's do that first. Let's check out this problem. So This is the problem. So here is Cinematic 1080p 30 frames per second iPhone 13 Pro Max. What I didn't realize at the time was my iPhone 13 Pro Max was on iOS 15, not iOS 16. It was on iOS 15. And that perhaps is the reason why this was working. So let's just watch this a little bit. So notice that I can check on Cinematic with the iOS 15 and the iPhone 13 Pro Max. I can check it on. But when I go over here, this is Cinematic 4K 24 frames per second iPhone 14 Pro Max. This is iOS 16 because the iPhone 14 Pro Max shipped with iOS 16. Watch what happens. Click on Cinematic. The effect can't be enabled. The effect can't be enabled in Final Cut Pro. I discovered that and posted that video when I first got my iPhone. One of the things, listen, people are saying the iPhone 13 Pro Max and the iPhone 14 Pro Max, not much difference. Wrong. Absolutely incorrect. I have both. I traded in my iPhone 13 Pro Max. The iPhone 14 Pro Max is what I have now. There are many, many, many benefits to the iPhone 14 Pro Max. Now, can you wait a year? Absolutely. Not an issue. Since I use my iPhone as my main camera, I do a lot of live streaming, I want the best one available. So I trade in my iPhone 13 Pro Max, trade it in at Apple. I get this 14 Pro Max about half price. Instead of paying $1,500, I'm paying $700 something with the trade-in. So that's what I do every year. And that's what I did again this year. But there's the selfie camera, the front-facing camera is so much better on the 14. It has autofocus and some other things. You can record, and I didn't know this when I bought it, but you can record cinematic video, 4K, I'm pretty sure 24 frames per second on the front-facing selfie camera. I did not know that when I got it. I thought it had to be on the backside cameras, the ones that are face away from you. But it's not, that's not the case. The selfie camera is fantastic. They've improved. They've given you 0.5, 1, 2, and 3 optical zooms on this thing now. So that's another thing that's really good. But anyway, let's go over here. Let's go over here to the graphics. So HQ. Oh, that's, first off, here's my backyard for today. Look at this. Look how beautiful that is. Actually, that was last evening. I took it last evening. The sun was setting. This is the fall. We're getting ready for the fall colors. Look at this. I think different. iOS 16 bug breaks cinematic mode support for iMovie and Final Cut Pro. Okay? That's what I kept reading. iOS breaks cinematic mode. Hi, Richard from Northern Ireland. Got the iPhone 14 Pro Max. Pleased with quality of main sensor. Kept the iPhone 13 as an extra video cam for editing in Final Cut Pro. Haven't tried Cinematic yet. Cinematic is very, very cool. 4K version. The 1080p version from the iPhone 13 last year, I used a little bit. I didn't use it that much. The 4K is what I was waiting for in cinematic mode. I think I use it all the time now. The only disadvantage to using cinematic 4K, it only gives you the 1 times optical zoom and 3 times optical zoom. You don't have the 2 times and you don't have the 0.5 like you do recording with plain video. You have 4 different choices with plain video. Let me just check one thing real quick. All right, I'm going to try something here live, and let me see if this is any better. All right, let me try this. I'll be right back with you. I'm just checking the audio. All right, I took off the mic delay. I'm going to check, and I'm just checking to see if what I had before was the incorrect setting for this new version of Ecamm. I'll be right back with you. All right, so I took off. Listen, I've been streaming with Ecamm Live for years, and I have a 5-second mic delay to match up the audio. It was very delayed. I took it off. It seems to be better now, at least on YouTube, right? On YouTube. I don't know. I don't even know where else it is. So anyway, it should be better sync now. So there's a couple of issues. Number one is all of these graphics say the same thing. This one was this one. This one was one. I did it in my own video. Here's another one, iOS 16 bug breaking support for videos in cinematic mode. Here's another one, iOS 16 bug break support for cinematic videos in Final Cut Pro. Here's one more, iOS 16 bug breaking support for videos in cinematic mode. They might all be the exact same source. They might be the exact same source. I don't know. They seem like they are. A lot of times you'll get a video and it'll be the exact same. Everybody's referencing the same story. And I think that's what happened here. I put up the video on YouTube. When I first got this, I went down to my local small town in Sykesville, Main Street, and I was talking about, hey, Apple, I got this brand new phone, $1,500, Final Cut Pro. You can't edit the 4K version. I did not try the 1080p version at that time because my 1080p iPhone 13 was working in Final Cut Pro. The 14 4K was not. The 13 on iOS 15 was. At that point, I did not know that the iOS was one of the issues. Listen, I still don't know. I'm going to tell you what I know and why we're going to get support for editing cinematic in Final Cut Pro in October. And it's not a reason that's all-encompassing, that fixes every issue. But apparently it does fix the ability to edit cinematic in Final Cut Pro. It's coming in October. What else is coming in October? What else is coming in October? Well, let's see. An Apple event, maybe? Maybe. Maybe. But this is one of the things that I was a little bit concerned about. Here we go. So Mark Gurman says, upcoming Apple product announcements could come as press release, not an October event. This is one of the things Mark Gurman says. Now, he has a hit or miss track record. He's not always correct, but he's correct a lot of the times. He has some inside information. So he's saying that no Apple event. What would that mean? This is October, of course. What would that mean if there's no Apple event in October? Would that mean that maybe the products aren't that big of an update? And Eric says, I think there will be an October event. And I agree with you, Eric. I think there will be an October event too. I think Gurman is wrong about this. So in October, I said there's going to be a fix in October. And indeed, there is supposed to be. We're going to get new Macs, M2 Macs, regardless of whether there's an Apple event or whether it's just a press release. I agree with Eric, and I think there is indeed going to be an Apple event. I think we're going to finally see a new updated Mac Mini, an M2 Mac Mini, maybe an M2 Pro Mac Mini or Mac Mini Pro. I think we will see, they've been talking about the 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pro M2 version, M2 Max versions coming out in October this fall. I think we very well, there's been too many reports of that. It'd be very strange if that didn't pan out. So 14 and 16, I'm on this, excuse me, I'm on the 2021 MacBook Pro, and I really, really like it. It's become my main machine. I have my 2019 Mac Pro, but I'm using my MacBook Pro more than the 2019 Mac Pro at this point. So it's very likely I will update if they have an M2 Pro 16-inch. I'll probably update it. Or maybe in early November, that's true. But I think October this year. They did November events when they had an October and November event. I don't think they're going to do two events this year, so I'm going to say October. And I do not think they're going to do the press release. That would be very disappointing to me, because that would signal, hey, there's nothing really here that much. Press release is good enough. No, I'd like to see that, because I tell you what else. What's coming in October? New Macs, whether it's press release, whether it's an event. I say Apple event, Eric says Apple event. So new Macs, M2 Macs, they already had the M2's WWDC. What else is coming in October? Ventura. Ventura is coming in October. If they do a new version of Mac OS and new Macs, the M2 Macs in October, I'm going to say the Final Cut Pro 10.7 is coming out in October as well. I'm going to say Final Cut Pro 10.7 is coming out in October as well. So is that what fixes this problem, Final Cut Pro 10.7? Maybe, but that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is Ventura. In October, you're going to get macOS Ventura. If you're running macOS Ventura and the current version of Final Cut Pro or later, which is 10.6.4, you're going to be able to edit iPhone 16, iOS 16, iPhone 14 cinematic video on your Mac. It's going to require Ventura at this point. So Ventura is coming in October. Will work with the current version of Final Cut Pro 10.6.4 to edit cinematic video on the Mac. Now, that seems a little strange to me that the Mac OS seems to be an issue in this. I didn't think Mac OS. I'm thinking, well, Final Cut needs to be updated because it also doesn't work in iMovie. Or I thought, everybody thought that, what did they think? iOS bug. Everybody's saying iOS bug. iOS bug does not I mean, that's what everybody's saying that. Initially, I thought it was Final Cut Pro needed to be updated because it's working on the phone and the iPad, I believe. It's not working in iMovie and Final Cut Pro. So I think, well, they got to update Final Cut Pro. But I'll show you why it's Ventura, at least this initial. Now, what I'm saying is Ventura, current version of Final Cut Pro, if you're shooting cinematic on an iOS 16 device. An iOS 16 device. And here's the reason why. Let's use this. Here's the reason why. Use cinematic mode on your iPhone. This article was just updated overnight. Okay, before it did not have, let me boost this up a little bit. Yesterday, it did not have iPhone 14 Pro Max, 14 Pro, Pro, 14 Plus. It did not have these yesterday. They added these overnight. Okay? They just had the iPhone 13 until last night or early this morning. Here's where I get the Ventura. Talks about, this is all about the iPhone. Look what it says here. To edit cinematic mode videos recorded on iOS 16, you must use iOS 16, iPadOS 16, or Mac OS Ventura or later. iPadOS 16 and Mac OS Ventura will be available in in October. To edit cinematic mode videos recorded on iOS 16, you must use iOS 16, iPad 16, or Mac OS Ventura. This is what's coming in October that will enable you to edit cinematic videos on your Mac. You're going to need Ventura. Now, that's a problem because a lot of people are not going to just automatically update to Ventura. If I get a new MacBook Pro, obviously it'll be on Ventura. But right now, there's something, listen, it's a complicated handshake. iOS 16, Final Cut Pro 10.6.2, and Mac OS, whatever the heck it is. What am I using right now? What version am I using? Got this Mac. Monterey 12.5.1. 12.5.1. I'm not going to update this MacBook Pro to Ventura. I'm not going to update my MacBook Pro to Ventura. If I get a new one, of course it'll be Ventura. And they will announce new Mac Pro in the fall, maybe not shipping till winter. I agree with that. I think I'd be pleasantly surprised if they have the M2 Max, M2 Ultra MacBook Mac Pro available this year, but I think they're going to maybe preview it, saying coming the first of the year or later this year. So Tyler says, have you considered testing a public beta to validate this idea? Well, listen, it's not an idea. It's what Apple is saying. So have I tested it? No. I tested Ventura beta when it first came out. It was nothing that I wanted to be messing with. Too many bugs. This is official Apple. This is not me guessing. This is officially from Apple. To edit cinematic mode videos recorded on iOS 16, you must use Mac OS Ventura or later. That's what Apple is saying. Now, My question is, will Final Cut Pro 10.7 also require Ventura? Normally, when a new version of Final Cut Pro comes out, it goes back to the previous version of Mac OS, normally. So, but this feature requires Ventura. Why? The current version of Final Cut Pro 10.6.4 and Ventura can edit iOS 16 cinematic mode. There's something that just doesn't add up there. It seems peculiar combination of things to get this to work. So I think an update to Final Cut Pro, I think in October it's going to be 10.7. I don't think it's going to be 10.6.5. And maybe doesn't Final Cut Pro normally go back to one Mac OS and the forward? Does it ever come in and require only the current version, the brand new version, in this case Ventura? That'll make some people aggravated because a lot of people don't update their OS. Before you update your OS, before you update Final Cut Pro, make a backup. I always update versions of Final Cut Pro. In the applications folder, I always make a backup of my current OS, the whole system. So if there is an issue, I can revert back. I'm not sure. This is a strange handshake. Okay, the handshake is iOS 16, Final Cut Pro 10.6.4 or later, and Ventura. That's the handshake. What about Monterey? And if people don't want to update, they're going to be forced to update to Ventura according to what we've seen so far. I don't think this is the end. I think there's going to be another update to Final Cut or maybe to Monterey that's going to allow, or iOS 16, or all three of them, that's going to allow other variables to edit cinematic mode on a Mac. So cinematic mode in iOS 13, cinematic mode on my iPhone 13 Pro Max and iOS 15 was interesting, but not that exciting to me because I usually shoot in 4K. So it was only 1080p, only 30 frames per second. Now we have the option of 4K, which I prefer, and we have 24 frames per second on the iPhone. Now, yeah, you can edit it on the iPhone, from what I understand, but I think iMovie is also broke. So what else do we have here? Oh, here's if you don't know what cinematic mode, I just went outside and shot this just for the audience. This is a little clip in my backyard. You'll see first the leaves in the foreground will be in focus, and then the leaves in the background will be in focus. I went back and forth a few times, exported from my phone. Doesn't work in Final Cut. Can't do it in Final Cut. This is what it looks like. So the leaves in the foreground are in focus, the leaves in the background are in focus. All I do is touch the screen and it focuses back and forth. So I like the iPhone 14 Pro Max quite a bit. I like it quite a bit. What do you think? Is this a peculiar way to get cinematic mode to work? Is this a peculiar way? Yeah, I think it is. It just seems strange, this combination. Ventura, the shipping version of Final Cut Pro 10.6.4, if you're shooting Cinematic and iOS 16. Those are the criteria if you're shooting on the new iPhone 14 Pro Max or Pro, whatever you have. If you have a 13 Pro Max and you're shooting 1080p and you're on iOS 15, this doesn't apply. You can still shoot Cinematic and bring it into Final Cut. This is a strange deck of cards we've been dealt here. I'm glad that Ventura, is it right to say it fixes this? I don't know. I'd be surprised if Final Cut Pro 10.7, number one, is not released in October with the new Macs and Ventura. Maybe they're going to have an Apple event. They're going to release Ventura. They're going to release the new M2 Max. They're going to release a new version of Final Cut Pro, motion, compressor, of course, all these things. One second, audio lag. Let me check it, Daniel. No, there's been some problems with my software. Let me go back and check real quick. Hold on one second. No, it seems like it's just a little bit, maybe half a second. Something has completely changed in Ecamm Live, which is what I'm using here. I'm recording this as well, and that should not have an issue. Tyler says audio is fine on my end. So for years, 1 or 2 years, I've had a default 0.5, not 5 second, 0.5 frame delay to match up my audio and my video. My audio is coming through an Apollo Twin X. My microphone, which is a Neumann TLM-103 going through an Apollo Twin X. And my camera is a GH5 going through a Camlink 4K. In order to get those to sync up, I used to have a 5-frame delay on the audio. I can't delay the video. Today, when I had that, the audio was really behind, so I switched it to no frames, and that's about the best I can do. So a lot of things have changed in Ecamm, and I haven't been able to get them all figured out yet. Anyway, I am recording this, so the audio should be fine on the recording. I record locally. I'm broadcasting in 1080p. But so what do you think about that? If you use an iOS 16 to record Cinematic, it doesn't specify whether it's 4K or 1080p, probably either one. If you use your new phone to record Cinematic with iOS 16, because that's what it ships with, in order to edit it on the Mac in Final Cut Pro, current version of Final Cut Pro will work, but you're going to only be able to do it on Ventura, at least right now. I'm not convinced that's not going to change, but maybe that's what it's going to be. Maybe it's going to require, maybe Final Cut Pro 10.7 is going to require Ventura. If that's the case, and I don't buy a new M2 Mac, it's kind of hard for me not to buy one. I like my MacBook Pro a lot. I use it as my desktop, and I use it when I went to NAB for 3 or 4 days. If I go anywhere else, I take it with me. If I have to edit on the road, I take it with me. It's very powerful. I very likely will buy a new version, especially when they allow me to trade this one in on the new one. Seamless. It's easy to do. Roz, thanks, Richard. Have to run. Thank you, Roz. So what do you think? What do you think about this situation? iOS 16, Cinematic on iOS 16, current version of Final Cut Pro, but it has to be on Ventura, macOS Ventura. Seems kind of strange. But at least we have that, right? At least we have that. Once again, right here, to edit cinematic mode videos recorded on iOS 16, that's one criteria. You must use Mac OS Ventura or later. If you record cinematic on iOS 16, at this point, you have to use Mac OS Ventura. Mac OS Ventura is coming in October, which means you'll be able to edit the videos in October. Now, since these iPhones are brand new, and Apple doesn't want any issues with people complaining, because it's bizarre that this issue came up, I'm expecting the Apple event to be announced today, tomorrow, or next week. I expect it to be in the first half of October, not at the end, but who the heck knows? Who in the heck knows? You have to, whatever. Subscribe over there, Richard Taylor TV, on YouTube, Facebook. YouTube and Facebook, Twitter, all that stuff. Let me just see if we have any comments. I don't think we have any. I'm just going to check. Yeah, I don't see any comments. So I couldn't broadcast to Facebook today. I don't know why, but I could not broadcast to Facebook today. Let me see something about it. There we go. There we go. Yeah, it didn't broadcast Ecamm Live. I'm using the beta version, so I'm broadcasting from Ecamm to Restream to the other platforms. Restream is getting it because we're on YouTube Live, but Restream for some reason is not connected to Facebook and Twitter. So I don't know. Ventura, current version of Final Cut Pro 10.6.4, if you're shooting cinematic on iOS 16. October. Our friend Eric Emmerich, his iNet and TV just got knocked out, so back on 5G data. So our friend Eric, please stay safe down there in Florida for all of you who are going through that hurricane. We don't get, I live outside of Baltimore, Washington. We don't get that much hurricane activity up here. Once in a while, we lost power for 48 hours with hurricane. I think it was Hurricane Irene. Of course, everybody got hit big time with Hurricane Agnes years ago when I was a kid. But please stay safe down here in Florida. I'm not sure if you're going to have more issues, but stay safe. Eric Emmerich's down there. What do you think? Comment about what do you think about the fact that in order to edit iOS 16 cinematic video in Final Cut, you're going to have to be on Ventura. At least so far. Does that mean Final Cut Pro 10.7 is going to need Ventura? Maybe. Don't know. Don't know for a fact. But at least we'll be able to edit. I'm going to dual boot Monterey, Ventura. I will not switch over my main machine to Ventura until 6 months, 9 months from now. Until it's stable, Listen, plugins are a problem, especially audio plugins. Every time they update the Mac OS, audio plugins are a huge, huge issue, and I depend on audio plugins quite a bit. Let me pull those up so you can see what I'm dealing with. This is the audio plugins I'm using right now. This is what I'm using on this broadcast. These are the audio plugins. If they don't work in Ventura, I am not going to Ventura. That's for sure. I need the audio plugins too much. Now look at that. It came back on again. That's amazing. Every time I switch the scene, the audio was muted and then it comes back on. All right. I think we're done for today, everyone. I might broadcast this, go back and put it up on Facebook myself manually. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe we'll do that. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Richard Taylor. Over there, where is it? Over there, Richard Taylor. Please, you get a chance, subscribe over there at YouTube, Richard Taylor TV. Boost some of the subscriptions. Of course, give it a thumbs up if you like it. October, Mac OS Ventura, iPhone 16 Cinematic Video, and the current shipping version of Final Cut Pro will be able to edit it. Mac OS Monterey, don't know. Final Cut Pro 10.7, I think if they introduce, especially if they have an event with M2 Max, new Mac Mini Pro, whatever they're going to do, new MacBook Pros, that Final Cut Pro 10.7 will be introduced along with Monterey and the new Macs. But even if it's not, even if Final Cut Pro 10.7 does not come out, Ventura, Final Cut Pro 10.6.4, and iOS 16 Cinematic Video will be able to be edited in Final Cut in October. All right. Talk to everybody later. Thanks for tuning in.